Hey, everybody, welcome into the first edition of the ALA BCA podcast. I'm Caleb Brooks, your host, and I'm joined by our first guest of the ALA BCA podcast, Coach Brad Bohannon from the University of Alabama, baseball coach up there at Alabama. And Coach, first off, just thank you for taking the time this morning to sit down and join me.
Well, Caleb, thank you for having me. I'm excited about it.
So, Coach, this is a podcast where we're going to talk to a lot of different people from around the country that are involved with baseball, and everybody knows you and your involvement with baseball at the University of Alabama. But I kind of first want to start with how you got into baseball. Where did your love for baseball really begin? And then at what point in your life did you really know, like, coaching is what I want to go into, and this is what I want to do with, my professional life?
Caleb, I think everybody has a different path and a different story. And, I was always very passionate about baseball as a player. I loved it and loved working at it. And, but I don't think I really thought of myself as being a coach at a younger age. And one of the things I'm really thankful for is I had a real job for a year before I got into coaching. And, right when I got done playing, I worked for an IT consulting company, and I did that for a year. And I figured out in a hurry that being in a cubicle and sitting at a computer wasn't what I wanted to do for the next 40 years. And I decided to go back to school. So I went to Wake Forest to pursue my MBA, to do something a little more business oriented, and was very fortunate through that process to get connected with their baseball program and be the volunteer assistant coach. And once I was doing that, somewhat full time, it really hit me that, hey, this is what I want to do with my life. So that was a huge break for me, one of a couple of breaks. And, I'm really fortunate that I had that experience of having, a corporate 9-to-5 type job. I think it helps put things in perspective. I have a dream job right now, but the path of being a college baseball coach, it's not easy. And when you've been on the other side of the fence, it helps put things in perspective, I think.
I know a lot of coaches that, just get right into coaching. They played in college, they go in as being a grad assistant, and then they're immediately coaches. Does your experience having done something else, does it kind of make you a little bit more grateful every day when you show up there and you realize, man, I'm the head baseball coach at the University of Alabama?
Absolutely. There aren't many days that go by that I don't stand out on that field and look up at the Joe, and I'm like, still pinching myself 5 years in that I have this amazing opportunity. But, being a young coach is hard. I mean, you're potentially moving a lot. You're not making much money. You're working all the time. And there just aren't a lot of great jobs in baseball, and they're unbelievably competitive. And I think at a young age, when I wasn't making much money and I had friends that were having, career success and maybe a little further along in other areas of their life, it put things in perspective for me of, hey, at least I love coming to work every day. I really felt like that I was never working. And I'm thankful for that perspective. And also I learned a lot of skills in a corporate environment that helped me, today, of just time management and having difficult conversations and dealing with older people and just being in a professional environment that I didn't realize at the time, but a lot of those experiences are, and skills that I learned at that point in time have helped me today.
You've obviously been very lucky in the sense that you've spent a majority of your career in the ACC and the SEC with the highest level of baseball players in the country. And what is it like that, dealing with them on a daily basis and kind of trying to, control some of these kids who, get told for a lot of their life how good they are, and, they start getting recruited at a 9th grade, 10th grade level. And what's it like kind of trying to deal with those guys and keep them humble on a daily basis?
I think there's challenges no matter what level you work at. And I'm sure coaches that coach at a lower level wish that they could work with more talented kids or wish that their programs had more resources. And, luckily, coaching at a Power 5 conference, you get to work with kids that are very talented, and you do have a lot of resources to help them develop. But, again, it's all about perspective, and it's all relative to who you're competing against. Like, we have this amazing facility and all these great resources, but we got to play Ole Miss and Mississippi State and LSU and Arkansas every year. And you got to beat them, or you got to go do something else. So, there are challenges at this level. Our kids probably have different types of distractions of, worrying about the draft or having their agents in their ear, or they've never had any failure before they get here. And, the longer I coach, the more positive I've become, because SEC baseball is the biggest adjustment of a young player's life, going from high school to the Southeastern Conference. And, once they go from here to minor league baseball, they're more mature, and they're more hardened and more prepared to deal with some short-term adversity. And, you really become a mental coach that first year in the league, whether they're a transfer or a JUCO guy or a high school kid.
There's a lot of coaches out there that are very okay with just being assistants and doing that their whole entire career and just being with a program. At what point, while you were an assistant at Kentucky, did you really realize, all right, I want to take on trying to be a head coach one day and really try to move up in the ranks even?
Caleb, that's a good point. I was not one of those young assistants that was in a race to become a head coach. And there was a point in time earlier where I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be a head coach. Like, I loved being an assistant coach. And part of that is I was at great places and really thankful to work for great people. The thing about being an assistant coach is all you do is coach and recruit. And those are very challenging and very time demanding responsibilities, but you kind of have two areas that, you spend all your time trying to recruit players. And then when you get them, you do everything you can to develop them. And, being a head coach, it's almost like a career change. You're involved in 30 or 40 things where you spend a little bit of time on a bunch of things instead of a lot of time on two areas. So they're different jobs. And, I don't think there was a specific point in time where I said, like, okay, I'm ready for this, or I want to pursue this. It's all just kind of happened organically. And I'll say this, I'm so thankful for the way that my career has gone. And I interviewed for a couple of head coaching jobs before the Alabama one worked out. And looking back, I'm not quite sure I was really ready. I certainly wasn't as prepared, at those times as I was when the Alabama opportunity, came about. So, I don't know if I kind of believe that things happen for a reason, and a lot of that stuff is outside of our control. And I'm just really thankful for the timing of when opportunities have, taken place for me.
You developed the reputation of a great recruiter in this country, and you've done it from when you started at Kentucky all the way through being there, being at Auburn, and now at Alabama, pulling in another top 10 class recently. What is it about recruiting that you love? Because I feel like it is something that you have to love and you have to enjoy to, work that hard at trying to get high school kids to come and play for your baseball program.
I kind of chuckle every time somebody talks about me being good at recruiting. Like, the kids are the ones that deserve all the credit. They're the kids that are coming to college and putting in the work and developing. I haven't, thank goodness, swung the bat or thrown a pitch a single time in the past 19 years. But, I've also been very fortunate to coach at great places. I mean, Kentucky and Auburn and Alabama are places where you should get really good players. I mean, they're all different, but they're all, great colleges with facilities and in Southeastern Conference baseball to sell. So I think one of the coolest parts of being a college coach is you get to pick who you work with, not just physically from a skill standpoint, but also, from a personality standpoint. And it's just fun developing relationships. Like, I love getting to know, I guess I'm a pretty outgoing person, and even the kids I don't get, it's cool, developing relationships, whether it's potential student athletes or their parents or, coaches at different levels. And I think you have to enjoy that and enjoy working at it if you want to be good at recruiting.
When you arrived to the University of Alabama, it had been 10 years since they had hosted a super regional game there, and had been 6 years since they had made a super regional. And obviously the culture had changed there a little bit with the baseball program. And so what was kind of your first step in changing the culture, and what would be your advice to other coaches who are maybe entering a place where they kind of feel like we need to change the culture here and kind of get it back to a winning environment at this place?
Yeah, I'm really proud of the environment. I think culture is a word that every coach uses. And, I'm really proud of the environment that we have. And I think over time, it can even be a competitive advantage for us. And, again, it's the kids are the ones that deserve all the credit. They're the ones that kind of create the environment. Obviously, leading the program, I have an impact on that as well. But, I'm very thankful that Greg Byrne, our athletic director, was just adamant when I got the job of, he knew that we were taking over a team that had gone 16-34 and finished last in the league the year before we got here. And he was just adamant of like, Brad, I'm going to give you time. And I really believed him when he told me. And I think maybe you could do a rebuild a little bit faster now with the transfer portal and the one-time transfer exemption. But, back when we got here, you could either sign junior college players or high school kids. And we took our time and we probably maybe in hindsight should have added a few more older kids the first couple of years, but we did it, primarily through high school recruiting. And I think that at this point it's paid off for us because I'm really pleased with where the roster is right now.
We kind of saw it watching Alabama basketball last year with how people fell in love with John Petty and Alex Reese and Herb and those guys that had been there a while. I kind of felt the same way for your seniors this past year with the baseball program that, getting back to the regionals and all that. And you could tell the fans really got behind those seniors. And is that going to always be kind of a special group to you because they're kind of the ones that did come in at a time where the program wasn't at the top and helped build this thing into now where you have it competing in the SEC?
Caleb, there's no doubt. Sam Prater deserved to play in Hoover and to play 4 games in Hoover and to play in a regional, and Brock Guffey, and the list goes on and on. But even those younger kids, they bought into what we were selling before we had proven it on the field. And even the freshmen and sophomores, they signed on with us when we had finished last in the league. So yes, the older players will always be special to me, but really just that group as a whole. And they gave us everything they had, and probably had more than our share of bumps and bruises last year with key players. And gosh, our kids just really competed at a high level. And I'll always appreciate that group of kids for those intangibles.
We were talking about your recruiting, and obviously a lot of people know that one of your best players last year was from Canada, and you've gotten one of your best pitchers from Wisconsin. And is that just through developing relationships over the year in recruiting, or how do you find these kids from different regions of the United States and get them to come to the University of Alabama?
Well, there aren't a lot of secrets these days with all the social media and technology. And, when I was at Kentucky for 12 years, I figured out in a hurry I had a better chance of trying to convince a kid in Canada or Wisconsin that Kentucky was the South, than convincing a kid from Tampa that, they weren't going to get frostbite in January. So, yeah, when I was at Kentucky, I developed a lot of relationships in the upper Midwest that I still maintain contact with. But Alabama's a true national brand. And, you look at some of the statistics from our university since Coach Saban's been the head coach here, we've doubled in size, and we've, kind of gone 2/3 in-state kids to 2/3 out of state. And you can call a kid anywhere in the country or in Canada, and you say, hey, this is Brad Bohannon, the head coach at Alabama, and they get excited, their ears perk up because it's Alabama, man. There is a real national brand to our university right now. It's a great place to go to college, and, yes, SEC baseball facilities and all that. But if you strip that stuff out, like Alabama's just a really cool place to be a college kid. And we've got a real national brand that we can sell.
With that, has that brand changed? Like, has it even gotten bigger and better during your time at the University of Alabama as the football team has won more, as you guys have won more, as basketball has gotten better? Have you seen that brand grow even more to kids nationwide that you talk to?
Well, I do think kids are even more receptive, for us, because they see now the progress that we've made. And, our first year or two, yes, we had a strong brand, but I think some kids that are really, really competitive that want to go to the College World Series were kind of like, I really like you guys, but hey, show me some more progress on the field. And now, like, it's not even something that we have to talk about. I think everybody knows that, hey, man, we've won more games every year we've been here. We're going to be better this year than we were last year. And if you come to Alabama, you're going to have a legitimate chance to play in the College World Series if you're here for 3 years.
Was that kind of motivating to you? Like, is that something that motivated you more when you heard that from kids? Man, I really like you, coach, but I want to go somewhere where I feel like I can make the College World Series. And is that something that just kind of motivated you even more to get this program better and to get it to national prominence?
I didn't need any motivation. I think we as coaches, we always have higher expectations and put more pressure on ourselves than anyone externally. And look, here's the thing about Alabama. If you look at over a 50 or 60 year period, we're a top 10 program in the country. We've been in the College World Series 5 times. We've been in 25 regionals. There's a lot of tradition here. I think anybody with a brain can just see that, hey, we had, our program had a little blurb of some failure for a period of time. But if you look over the long haul, Alabama is a real baseball program.
With your style of coaching, how has that developed over time, and how different is maybe the way that you are as a head coach compared to the guys that you worked under when you were an assistant?
Caleb, that's a great question. And I think I've changed so much as a coach from year to year. I look back at myself 10, 12, 15 years ago, and I am so thankful for my career because I worked for 3 head coaches that are all great head coaches. John Cohen, Gary Henderson were both SEC coaches of the year. Butch Thompson, great coach at Auburn. And you couldn't find 3 people that are more polar opposite from a personality standpoint, how they run their programs. And, I'm so thankful that I just didn't coach at one school for 20 years for one guy. I got to see 3 different ways to do it. And those guys are all tremendously talented. And I think at the end of the day, you got to be yourself. You got to be who you are and put your spin on everything. But really thankful for my experiences, working for all 3 of those people. And I've probably taken things that all 3 of them do and have applied them and certainly put my own spin on it.
How would you kind of describe yourself as a coach? Like, are you a fiery guy that likes to yell and use energy in that type of sense, or how would you kind of describe how you try to get through to your guys?
Well, I think I'm a positive energy person. I'm certainly not a screamer and yeller. I get mad about once or twice a year, and but with again, we've got great kids. I mean, we're able to attract kids that are very serious about baseball. We don't have to coach effort. I mean, kids are coming to Alabama now. They're turning down the draft and trying to double or triple the money, in their 3 years here. So, it's a teaching environment. It's a very positive place. And, my whole deal is I want to teach the kids how to play in the fall, and then in the spring, just go play. And that's kind of our mantra. In the fall, I tell them, hey, just get better. Don't worry about where you fit. Don't worry about anybody else around you. Just focus on getting better. And these are things you got to get better at. And then when the spring gets here, it's like, hey, just go play. Just go play. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't worry about tomorrow. Just go play. And I really try to keep it that simple. And, to do that, you got to have the right kids, and you got to do a good job of teaching them how you want them to play in the fall.
How different is your fall period compared to your spring? Like, how you run practice, the way that you organize it, what y'all are doing at practice? How do the 2 differ, and why do you change it if you do between the 2?
I don't think it's dramatically different. I mean, obviously early in the fall, it's a little more elementary. You can't take anything for granted. It's unbelievable. And I've talked with my staff about this the last couple of weeks, and it's really a compliment to the kids, but it's just unbelievable how much better the older kids are than the new kids at practicing. You just forget when you see them every day, you just forget how much better that they get. And we're attracting really talented players, but you get better at playing baseball by playing baseball. And I'm a big believer in that. And, there's time for drills. There's a time to rep things out, but I'm a big believer in playing the game. That's how you get better at winning the game.
Speaking of games, obviously y'all are now able to play fall games. You get 2 of those during the year. And how important are those games, and what benefit have you seen from those now, getting to do those for a few years?
I love it. I'm very thankful to the NCAA for allowing us to do it. And look, no matter how mature and competitive your kids are, it can get a little monotonous playing each other over a 6-week period. We have a 45-day window to get 27 practices in, and you get to your 3rd or 4th fall practice. It can be a little hard to be truly dialed for that Tuesday scrimmage. And number one, just to break the monotony, and we're going to play Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and I just wanted to play the best teams we could play. We've played Southern Miss in the past. We've played Florida State. We've played Tennessee. And I think it's just really important for the new kids to see, like, hey, this is another top 30 team in the country. Like, this is what it's going to be like for 10 straight weeks in the spring, and to have that experience. So I certainly hope we play well and hope that we win, but it's just all about those new kids seeing what another SEC team looks like in that other dugout.
You haven't done it because you just talked about, you've played Tennessee, Florida State, and Division I programs, but there are schools who play some of the junior colleges and things like that. And can that help in recruiting, allowing a team to come in and the coach maybe seeing a pitcher or seeing a hitter that they didn't know about, and all of a sudden they're interested in him and talking to him? And has that opened up any alleys from other coaches that you've maybe talked to that have done, playing the junior college programs in the fall?
Absolutely. And there's, different reasons to play different schools. And, with the 2 fall days, I've just kind of chosen to truly focus on our current players and our new kids. That's what the 2 fall games are all about for me. But I know other guys that play, schools of different levels or even junior colleges. And it is a way to get really good junior college programs on your campus and to see their players up close. And I can certainly see a benefit for that as well.
When you are recruiting and you're doing the things, you kind of talked about earlier, we maybe should have taken some older guys back when we got things started. And how do you kind of decide between taking a junior college kid or taking a high school kid, and how many you want to take of either one of them when you're doing your recruiting process?
Caleb, I think any head coach would tell you that recruiting is a puzzle with a lot of moving pieces. And, every year is a little bit different. And, you kind of go into each cycle with a base of what you need. And then you're going to fill those needs a little bit differently, just depending on the MLB draft and injuries and transfers and all of that kind of stuff. So, I think every year going forward, there's not going to be an exact number of, high school versus JUCO versus, 4-year or grad transfers that we'll take. It'll be a little bit different each year. And, I do think that we'll always be, heavy high school, but I expect to fill in with a handful of older kids each year. And those numbers will change by a couple, just depending on the needs of the club.
Have you ever seen it be more difficult to get like a junior college kid to buy into a program or anything, with them coming in knowing, I've only got 2 years here, something like, is there ever any difference, or has it just kind of always been the same of, when these kids come in, they buy into what we're doing and they buy into our team all the time?
I think that's a big part of recruiting is, getting on the same page on the front end and making sure that it's a fit. So I really haven't had any issues with that. But again, I've been coaching in the SEC for the last 19 years. So, every amateur baseball player wants to be in this league, and they're pretty fired up to get here when they get that opportunity.
Another big thing is you've obviously got a guy on your team that's, a lot of people were saying it's going to be the #1 overall draft pick and all that type of stuff. And he obviously ended up with an injury last year, and that ended up being big news while you guys were in the tournament. When you have a kid like that, we're getting crazy with how we are with science and being able to get people back from ACLs and now, Tommy John surgery and stuff. How do you balance a kid like him who, maybe wants to come back next year and throw and prove himself and stuff, but all right, well, our goal is to get him to the pros and allow him an opportunity to better himself and things like that. And how do you balance between bringing a kid back like that and then, doing also what you maybe feel like is best for him and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you just try to always do what's best for your kids, then everything's going to work out. And, we're going to do everything we can to rehab, help Connor rehab and support him through it. And just like with the incoming kids, like at the end of the day, he'll get to the draft and see what the money is and, decide if it's the right opportunity for him to forgo the rest of his time here, or if he's going to come back and, try to improve that. So, just like I do with the incoming kids, I'll just be supportive and we'll communicate. And at the end of the day, it's their life and their decision. And you just try to give them good information and support them no matter what they do.
How big of an impact do you kind of feel like that you have on their decisions when you're talking to them about money, kind of what they want and things like that? Do you feel like your opinion holds a lot of weight with these kids when they ask you for advice on that type of stuff?
Absolutely. No, unbelievably. No, I think they're all respectful and listen, but they typically kind of do what they want to do and know what they want to do. And, I guess there are some parents that value 19 years of experience at this level. And, when it comes to the college versus pro decision, I've got a pretty unique perspective in that, I've had a kid turn down $2 million to come to college. I've had a kid sign for $10,000 to not come to college. I think 26 players I recruited out of high school to Kentucky that have played in the big leagues. I've had kids sign out of high school and never get out of A-ball and blow all their money. I've had kids sign out of high school and make it to the big. I've had like every experience that you can possibly imagine. And, I guess every kid and family value that information a little bit more than others. But, again, and I genuinely mean this, at the end of the day, it's their life and their decision. And most kids need the college experience, but there are a small pool that are genuinely physically and mentally and emotionally ready to do that out of high school. But it's a tough road. And, at some point, a lot of money is a lot of money. And it's not for me to tell a kid or family, what is a lot of money.
With the one-time transfer rule, the transfer portal and all that, has that made it a little bit easier to deal with kids that you recruit that do decide to leave and go on and, skip college and everything? Has it helped in being able to go and pull a guy from the portal to maybe take his spot and not just lose that player completely in the recruiting process?
I think potentially, we're only a few months into the whole transfer portal thing, as far as, we really haven't even played a game yet since the transfer portal became a thing. So probably need to get a couple years down the road before, any of us can answer that question, very accurately. There were a gazillion kids in the portal over the summer, and, there weren't many of them that had a lot of success at the Power 5 level. It was a pretty short list of kids that had, really done it and proven it in college at a really high level. So it'll be interesting over time. I think there's always benefit to being able to potentially snag, an older kid on the fly, but until we get a little bit down the road, see the results of it tangibly, I think we'll have a better idea at that point.
Is it going to be kind of difficult when, let's say you've recruited a kid and he chooses to go to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU first year, and he doesn't like it. So he ends up wanting to leave, and he's got that 1-year deal. But is there going to be kind of a thought of, well, why didn't this kid make it at this place? Why wasn't he able to play? And is that going to affect how you go, like maybe re-recruit a kid that you had already previously recruited to come in and things like that?
Yeah, I think any coach would tell you that you kind of giggle like, hey, there's a reason they're in the portal. Every coach has said that. But look, every situation is different and unique. And, you don't know what you don't know. And, everybody has different experiences, good and bad. And look, I went to 3 different colleges and actually had a good experience at all 3 of them. So, I think anytime recruiting, man, you just got to gather information and communicate and just kind of trust your gut.
When you're able to get out on the field, and get to practice, is that kind of like the relaxing time for you, when you're not dealing with recruiting, you're not dealing with paperwork, you're not like, is that kind of the most fun time for you, is when you're out there on that baseball field and you don't have to worry about at that time all the things that we've kind of just talked about?
Absolutely. I love practice. I love practice, and I just love being around our kids. I love being on the field. And look, I'm not a CEO. I mean, I guess I am, but like I coach, and one of the cool things about being a head coach, you get to pick what you like spending your time on. I don't love being in the batting cage for 4 hours a day. So I love, doing infield defense and, the parts of, team practice that I enjoy. I get to pick, where I spend my time. So yeah, I would be surprised if any coach, if that wasn't their favorite part of the day, where you get to leave your phone in the coach's locker room and be on the field with the kids. I mean, that's kind of what we all signed up for 20 years ago.
Tell me a little bit about your team this year, Coach. You guys have gotten started with fall practice and have gotten that rolling. And so what have you seen from this group that you've liked, and what are some of the things that you guys are using this fall to work on and try to improve on heading into the 2022 season?
Caleb, to this point, I couldn't be more pleased with our group. And I think for the first time in 5 years, it's like the first time I feel like we've got some experience. And, there'll be some new faces on the mound, but, we've pretty much got 6 of our 9 starters back from last year. And I think any coach would tell you, like, your best coaches are your older players. And when you have guys like Owen Diodati and Jim Jarvis and Drew Williamson and William Hammader, Zane Denton, those guys have been with this coaching staff for 3 years now. Like, they explicitly know like how, the standards for our program, how we expect them to work and compete. And I think when a new kid comes in and he is surrounded by kids like that, like, they pay attention. Kids are a lot more perceptive than we give them credit for. So it's probably been the easiest fall for me. I feel like I've done less than ever before, and that's a compliment to our older returners. And so like I said, I'm really comfortable with our position players. Very bullish on that group. I think it's going to be the best defensive team, the most athletic, lineup that we've had since we've been here. I think we have a chance to be a good hitting team. And just like most schools, though, it's going to come down to the pitching. And we've got some arm talent. We just don't have a ton of experience. And I think early in the year, you'll see us, rely on some guys like Jacob McNary and Antoine Jean and Landon Green, just because they've been here and they've done it in SEC games before. And but we got a lot of arm talent, kids like Dylan Ray and Ben Hess and Luke Holman are new kids that our fans have never seen pitching in an Alabama uniform, but they have really high-end stuff. Hunter Furtado, a transfer from Wake Forest, has a big arm. And, those are new kids. And Grayson Hidd, didn't have a lot of success last year, but he's going to make a lot of money when he leaves here. And, they just haven't done it in an SEC game before. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but there's just something about going on the road in our league that's just different. So, but with that being said, this is clearly the most talented roster we've had since I've been the coach here. And to this point, they've shown that they've got really strong intangibles. It's just unbelievable, the lack of drama. These kids, they go where they're supposed to go. They do what they're supposed to do. And just very, very few issues. And it's been really fun so far.
When you do these fall games, is it open substitution, or do you run it like a normal 9-inning baseball game where, you have the one substitution and can't change out and all that type of stuff?
I think everybody does it different. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. So like when we go over to Mississippi State, I'll tell Lim, like, hey man, you just run guys in and out. I could care less, it's just more about the experience, for me. But I'm sure there's some schools that play and maybe play a little more straight up, but I'll probably play pretty straight up, but I could care less if the opponent does that or not.
That's what I was going to ask me for you. How do you like being able to get as many guys as possible into the game, or are you trying to get them really ready for this is how our game atmosphere is going to be when we get going in the spring?
I think a little bit of both. I would probably will play more people than I normally would on an SEC weekend, but I'm not going to play everyone. Like you kind of have to some degree, earn these opportunities. So, if we play 14 innings, then, we're going to have more than 9 guys get at bats, but it won't be everyone. So we'll kind of be somewhere in the middle. And, again, everybody, handles that differently, I'm sure.
Well, Coach, really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me and being our first guest here on the ALA BCA podcast. And really enjoyed getting to hear a little bit more about you and about, your coaching journey and where you've gotten to here at the University of Alabama. And like I told you when we first got on, really, really enjoyed watching you guys last year, keeping up with you guys, and really looking forward to another good year of Alabama baseball in 2022.
Well, thank you, Caleb. I'm really proud of our program, and I love talking about it. And, again, at the end of the day, the kids are the ones that deserve all the credit. They're working hard and making great progress. I think we're going to put another exciting product on the field this spring, and I hope everybody will come out and watch us.
Yes, sir. Well, good luck this year, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Caleb.